Welcome to this explainer on planning the absolute ultimate family trip to Studland Bay. If you're looking for a destination that completely blends stunning coastal scenery with, incredible history and top-tier wildlife, well, you have definitely found it. Situated right on the beautiful Dorset coast, we're going to unpack the absolute best child-friendly beaches, accessible family walks, and even some pretty wild hidden wartime secrets. Okay, let's dive right into this gorgeous destination. Looking north toward Bournemouth from Knoll Beach, Studland Bay boasts 4 miles of pristine, sandy expanses. It literally acts as a gateway to the famous Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site. And honestly, it's incredibly popular for a very good reason, welcoming up to 25,000 visitors a single day during those peak summer months. So here is our family action plan for the day. First, welcome to Studland Bay. Second, picking your family beach. Third, the Old Harry Rocks circular route. Fourth, discovering local wildlife. And finally, exploring D-Day history. Starting off with Section 1, welcome to Studland Bay, a coastal wonderland. Now, this massive 631-hectare National Nature Reserve is a profoundly unique playground. It's not just your standard beach sand. After about 60 years of being anchored down by marram grass, the acidic sand here is actually colonized by heather, which creates what's called a dune heath. Covering over 75 hectares, it is the largest habitat of its kind on the entire south coast, and it represents this thriving ancient ecosystem whose formation dates back a whopping 600 years. Moving right along to Section 2, picking your family beach and sorting out those base camp options. The bay isn't just one long, monotonous stretch. It's divided into distinct beaches, and each one offers a totally different family vibe. Think of this as your instant cheat sheet. If you want wide, sandy expanses and love the absolute novelty of arriving via a chain-link ferry, Shell Bay is perfect. If you're looking for facilities like a National Trust shop, a cafe, or pedalo and paddleboard rentals, Knoll Beach is your bustling hub. But if you prefer something a bit quieter with great rock pooling at low tide and really sheltered waters, the much smaller South Beach, complete with Joe's Cafe, is a brilliant local favorite. Now, an absolute must-know for parents here is understanding the layout of these beaches. Studland actually has a rich history of naturism dating all the way back to the 1920s. And there is a clearly marked 1-kilometer stretch at Knoll Beach where clothing is totally optional, complete with boundary posts that extend 50 meters inland. If you want to avoid this area, it's super easy. Simply stick to the main family zones at South Beach, Shell Beach, or the primary facilities area at Knoll Beach, which are absolutely perfect for kids. Okay, Section 3, the Old Harry Rocks circular route. If your family has some energy to burn, this is a highly manageable 3.5 miles circular route that takes about 1 to 2 hours to complete. It's rated as moderate, usually has really good conditions underfoot, and yes, well-behaved dogs are welcome. You just start right at the South Beach car park, take in the famous sea stacks, climb steadily up Ballard Down, and then loop back right through Studland Village. To keep the kids totally engaged during this hike, because we all know that can be half the battle, I highly recommend framing the walk as a massive scavenger hunt. Use these amazing historical landmarks scattered along the path. First, have them look for the rectangular Celtic earthworks hidden in the woods. Then, have them spot the iconic wave-carved stacks of Old Harry and his wife. Finally, toward the end of the loop near the church, challenge them to find the 1976 village cross with its incredibly cool mix of ancient and modern carvings. I do have to jump in here with a quick but vitally important safety note for parents. While the terrain is generally very gentle and stunning, the cliffs around Old Harry Rocks are dramatic. You absolutely must keep everyone, including your dogs, well back from the sheer drop-offs near the stacks. Right, on to Section 4, discovering local wildlife. For the nature enthusiasts in your family, Studland Bay is absolutely packed to the brim with hidden wonders. Venturing just a bit inland from the sandy beaches reveals these uninterrupted vistas of gently undulating hills covered in vibrant purple heather. Looking out over the freshwater lake known as Little Sea, you genuinely feel like you've stepped straight into the pages of a classic Thomas Hardy novel. And as you walk through this landscape, keep your eyes totally peeled. This is the only landscape in all of Britain where you can find all 6 native reptile species sunning themselves, including the incredibly rare smooth snake. If you look up near the cliffs, you might spot peregrine falcons folding back their wings to dive at mind-blowing speeds, or our largest gull species, the greater black-backed gull, just roosting on the stacks. Now, shift your gaze from the sky and the heath down into the shallow waters. 33. That is the monumental number of rare seahorses counted in just one single recent survey by volunteer divers off the coast of Studland Bay. This is a massive, massive deal, considering it used to be rare to spot even a single seahorse here. So why the sudden boom in seahorses? Well, it's all thanks to some really brilliant conservation efforts. Around £100,000 has been spent installing nearly 100 eco-moorings and 22 distinct yellow-blue meadows marker buoys. Before this, traditional boat anchors were literally tearing up the delicate roots of the seagrass. Now, 100 hectares, which is roughly the size of 100 football pitches, of seagrass are fully protected, allowing both seahorses and humans to thrive together in the bay. Let's pivot here from ecology to history. And I have a question that's absolutely guaranteed to grab the kids' attention. Can you imagine kings, prime ministers, and four-star generals walking this exact same peaceful beach while preparing for one of the biggest, most daring invasions in human history? Which brings us to Section 5, Exploring D-Day History. Okay, check this out. Just 6 weeks before D-Day, this area was known not as a tranquil nature reserve, but as Exercise Smash. Troops actually used live ammunition to make their practice runs as realistic as possible. Today, your family can hunt for historical Easter eggs out on the trails, like the Fort Henry bunker, or learn about the tragedy of the Valentine tanks that sit submerged 15 meters underwater right out in the bay. You might even hear local stories about bomb disposal teams occasionally having to safely detonate unearthed World War I and II shells right on the beach. You can actually still step inside Fort Henry today. When you're with the kids, don't just call it an empty concrete box. Frame it as a secret, 90-foot-long fortress. It was built back in 1943 with walls, floors, and ceilings all a massive 3 feet thick. This was the ultimate safe room, where, on April 18, 1944, Winston Churchill, King George VI, and Supreme Commander General Eisenhower literally stood to watch live-fire tank tests and see Allied forces prepare for the Normandy landings. So when you look at how this whole landscape transitions, from the delicate, ever-shifting sand dunes at the water's edge, gradually turning into deep, ancient heathland, all the way to the heavy concrete roots of its wartime history, every single layer of this place is educational, ecologically vital, and just visually breathtaking. So as you're packing up the car and finalizing that family itinerary, ask yourself this. What kind of adventure is your family waiting to choose? Will you hunt for Celtic ruins, paddleboard over those protected seagrass meadows, or stand exactly where Churchill stood? The choices are truly endless. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and have an absolutely amazing trip to Studland Bay.